Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Faster, my good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Thursday, 23rd of November 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news from the Isle of Man. Background to that news and sport, business, Sea-Watch, travel updates and the newsmakers in person. This evening, are our health and social care services getting better? Onshore wind farm could crash the economy, says an MHK. Spanish TT rider misjudged the racing line. Has anybody seen the Railway Report and 25% of the island's power coming from Andreas?
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. First to my Siobhan Fletcher.
In the last few minutes, the steam packet company has apologised to customers on last night's crossing to Heysham, which sailed for the best part of 7 hours. In a new statement, the company's managing director Brian Thompson said in hindsight the decision to try and clear as much freight as possible from the port last night was the wrong one. There's more on this at our website. A Spanish TT racer who died during this year's event simply misjudged the racing line. That's according to the coroner of inquests, who today recorded a verdict of misadventure at the conclusion of the inquest into the death of Raul Torres Martinez. If you live in Ramsey and want to have your say on issues in your local area, police are hosting the latest community roadshow in the north tonight. Representatives from the constabulary will be hosting the event at Ramsey Grammar School from 6 until 8 p.m. Further afield, a girl and a woman have been seriously injured in a knife attack outside a school in central Dublin. 5 people are in hospital and a suspect has been detained. Terrorism is being ruled out. 13 women and children held hostage in Gaza will be released tomorrow afternoon. Qatari officials who've acted as mediators between Israel and Hamas say a 4-day pause in fighting will begin 9 hours earlier, with aid allowed into Gaza. And it's claimed a UK government failure to act quickly on warnings about rising coronavirus cases in autumn 2020 led to preventable deaths. Speaking at the COVID inquiry, the chief scientific advisor criticised a lack of appreciation that quick decisions were needed during the pandemic. There are your headlines. News at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Goromaya, thank you, Siobhan, from the Ronaldsway Met Office. We've got that strong wind warning out in the North Irish Sea. State of sea moderate, occasionally rough, and tomorrow it'll be slight. The weather this evening, mostly dry, a fresh to strong wind coming in from the northwest, overnight minimum 5 degrees. For Chehenya, cloudy and dry with sunny intervals. After lunch on a fresh to strong northwest wind, veering northerly and easing. 9 degrees top temperature tomorrow, down to 5 through the night into Saturday. And for Jasan, dry, cloudy, a moderate southeasterly, daylight maximum 8 degrees. Tides on the way back in. High waters 8:15 tonight. Low tide 11 minutes before 3 a.m. Sunrise 2 minutes past 8. And high water tomorrow morning at 14 minutes before 9 here at the home of the Halfway Horse Tram.
Manx Glass and Glazing are proud to be an approved contractor with Construction Isle of Man. Call the team on 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
Motor vessel Manxman's due to depart earlier this evening due to that increased siltation at Heysham Port. The steam packet vessel will leave Douglas at 6:30 this evening instead of 7:15. It's one of a raft of changes the steam packet's made over the next 3 days. Here's Tessa Hawley with the detail.
Those changes made to accommodate a combination of bad weather and silt. The latter will impact every sailing scheduled to take place tomorrow, with the Heysham to Douglas sailing at 1:30 tomorrow morning, now due to leave at 12:50. The subsequent crossings have all been brought forward by 30 minutes. It's the latest wave of disruption to hit the travelling public. Passengers on last night's Manxman sailing to Heysham found themselves aboard the new vessel for much longer than they'd anticipated. anticipated. Despite being scheduled to leave Douglas at 7:45 last night, the vessel actually left port after 9 o'clock. It docked in the Lancashire port at 3:50 in the morning, 10 to 4. That's 4 hours later than scheduled. We asked the steam packet company why, and it told us the late arrival into Heysham created a conflict with another company's schedule, and there were insufficient number of dockers to load both vessels at once. The steam packet didn't say why the boat had left the Isle of Man late in the first place, but continued, for context, the dockers in Heysham work for the port, not Isle of Man Steam Packet Company as in Douglas. We were able to load passengers first to ensure they could get some rest, but backloading of freight took much longer than anticipated. The Manxman did sail back to the island, departing Heysham at 7:28 this morning, but it didn't go back out as scheduled at 8:45 due to a deterioration in the weather forecast.
The Isle of Man's health and social care services are getting better, albeit slowly, according to the Minister, but there's a lot of work to be done. Laurie Hooper, MHK, yesterday presented Manxcare's annual report to Tynwald alongside a letter of assessment from his department. Some politicians were critical of the documents, saying they didn't show effective progress. Russian MHK John Watterson claimed it was something he was concerned about across government.
From the island plan down, I'm concerned that government seems to fail to put good plans together. It doesn't have objectives that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. It uses KPIs that are not necessarily directly linked back to the objective that's stated. And they use the writing of plans and strategies as a sort of way, as a proxy for achievement, but of course that means nothing to the man in the street. So I think that there is an improvement generally needed in these plans in terms of what departments are actually going to deliver in real terms, rather than just creating paper, which seems to be what's done at the moment. So hence my comment that if you want to put something off for a year, you write a plan. If you want to put it off for the whole administration, write a strategy.
Are you confident that the new relationship with the department doing the regulation and the policy and Manx Care doing the delivery is actually going to provide the promised improvements in Manx healthcare delivery that were initially envisaged?
No, there's no evidence of success.
This is the most listened to Isle of Man news source, and Manx Radio's Update is the Isle of Man's most downloaded news podcast.
The government could crash the economy if plans for an onshore wind farm aren't delivered by the private sector, so says Arbury Castle Town and Maloo MHK Tim Glover. He brought a motion to Tynwald yesterday concerning locally generated renewable electricity.
I'm a fan of onshore renewables. I've made that very, very clear. I was quite astonished at times during the debate that people were debating something that wasn't my motion at all. I've never said that we should put our electricity supply in the hands of private companies. That was not the motion at all. It was for the Manx utilities to work with the private sector on this, and certainly with regard to renewables, it appears that the Isle of Man is closed, and that's the impression that's being given by all of this. So there's been a lot of upset and unrest amongst constituents in Arbury, Castletown and Maloo, and I was representing them. That's my job. Well, they've already said in scrutiny committees that they can't do this all on their own. And even if the wind farm does go ahead with the 5 turbines at Erie, Staine and Skirt, that's not going to be enough for them anyway. They're going to have to find other resources anyway. They're also at some point going to have to find resource to update the grid and renew and strengthen that. That's a lot of money that we're looking at here, and I cannot see, with the way we're spending reserves already at the moment, just to sort of maintain the status quo, as it were, that we're going to be able to afford this without going in partnership with private enterprise as well. Otherwise, we crash the economy. We don't want that. Generational debt for years.
The rise in tobacco duty won't impact people who vape, according to the Treasury Minister. During his autumn statement, the UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, announced increases, which the Isle of Man is now following. But Alex Allenson, MHK, told Manx Radio the increases to most smoking products will bring in some extra money, but also other benefits.
We have a shared duty arrangement with the United Kingdom and shared VAT. So some of these changes will produce some increased revenue. It's not a huge amount, to be honest with you. You're talking about tens of thousands of pounds over a period. It certainly helps, but the main thrust of the increase in tobacco duty was to try to encourage people to stop smoking. One of the other things that the government have announced is a policy to gradually wean people off cigarettes by increasing the age that they can buy those. Now, we're still looking for the details for that. I know that our Public Health Directorate will be looking at that in the future. So the duty changes they've made are relatively minor. They're just really about tobacco and smokers. And there is a lot of help out there to help people stop smoking. The duty changes won't affect people who vape because they're not covered by the same duties. The main thing was that they haven't really changed alcohol duties. So going into the winter months, I think that will be a little bit of relief for those people in the hospitality industry, particularly bars and clubs and restaurants.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Motor vessel Manxman this evening, 7:15, is now rescheduled. Will depart at 6:30. You're asked to check in no later than 6 o'clock. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Arriving in Heysham just before 11 o'clock. The 1:30 departure from Heysham is now rescheduled. Will depart at 10 to 1. So check in no later than 1:15 midnight. Tomorrow morning's departure, the 8:30, will now leave at 7:45. Check in no later than 7:15.
Like the Steam Packet on Facebook for the latest sailing information.
A Spanish TT racer who died during this year's event simply misjudged the racing line, according to the coroner of inquest, who today recorded a verdict of misadventure at the conclusion of the inquest into the death of Raul Torres Martinez. At Douglas Court for Manx Radio, Tessa Hawley.
The 46-year-old was killed on the 6th of June during the final lap of the Super Twin race between Orrisdale Road and Belaf Alpine. At Douglas Courthouse, the inquest heard from a number of witnesses who were at the scene, including the marshal who saw the Spanish policeman come off his bike just before 7:30 in the evening. He described how he watched the rider's machine take an unusual racing line before travelling towards the hedge, adding he could see him holding his left leg out as if he was trying to balance the bike. It all happened in a flash, he said, describing how he saw the racer disappear over the hedge and into a neighbouring field. Another marshal stationed at nearby Alpine told the court, "I heard the crash before I saw anything," adding he just saw debris afterwards. A doctor who was providing medical cover for the TT races also gave evidence to the inquest, saying she'd heard a loud screech and then heard a noise which sounded like a tree snapping. After running to assist, she said it was clear when she entered the field that Torres had sustained very serious injuries and had died at the scene. A post-mortem examination found the racer had suffered multiple injuries due to or as a consequence of a motorcycle racing incident. Evidence from a vehicle examination was also provided to the court, showing the racing bike had no mechanical defects which would have caused or contributed to the crash. Recording his verdict, Coroner of Inquest James Brooks said it had been an extremely shocking incident for the marshals and medics to witness, and had happened when Torres was travelling at significant speed. The injuries suffered by Raul were extremely serious, he added. He must have known motorcycle racing was an activity that was inherently risky.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 16 minutes before 6, First Group down 4% following disappointing interim numbers. The Aberdeen-based transport company swung to a pre-tax loss of £68.5 million to the 6 months to September 30th from a profit of £37 million a year ago due to a £142.3 million pension charge. Product inspection, testing and certification company Intertech gained as it said it's on track to deliver on targets for 2023 after a solid solid third quarter, though currency movements were limiting growth more than expected. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. Turkey's central bank has raised its main interest rate to 40% as part of a concerted campaign to tackle soaring inflation in the country. The rise from 35% was much greater than expected, but Turkey's central bank suggested rates were approaching the level required to start lowering inflation. Of course, inflation measures the rate of price rises. In Turkey, hit 61.36% in October and is forecast to rise further, peak in May of next year at between 70 and 75%. While central banks globally have raised interest rates in an attempt to slow rising prices, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan had resisted economic orthodoxy previously, arguing higher rates would cause prices to rise. But since he was re-elected in May, he's changed his tune. The central bank, under its new chief, former Wall Street banker Hafiz Gaye Erkan, has been allowed to ratchet up interest rates from 8.5% earlier this year to 40% now.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
London stocks edged higher following a positive close on Wall Street. Of course, volumes are thin as it's Thanksgiving in the United States. Gold rose, hovering close to that key $2,000 per ounce level, and oil fell, extending losses from the previous session. The numbers now reported by Ramsey Crookall at the close in London. FTSE 100 up just over 0.25%, 7,489. The DAX in Frankfurt up 0.25%, 15,995. Everything's closed in America because of Thanksgiving. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 25.3 cents, €1 14.8 cents, and 23 South African rand 56 cents. In commodities, gold's up a fraction, 0.08%, $1,992 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude down 0.9%, $80.78.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future for a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
An email released as part of an FOI response has shone a light on some of the issues being raised by a review into the Isle of Man's railways. Consultancy firm Sistra undertook an assessment of the economic value of the heritage network earlier this year. But where's the report? Here's Lewis Foster.
It's in the hands of government, but not ours just yet. Infrastructure Minister Tim Crookall was asked why.
It's certainly not explosive, and it is literally due out within days, and it will be as it was arrived on our desk, if you like.
Well, while we've been waiting for the report to be published, an email exchange between a member of the DOI and Sistra, published in response to a recent FOI request, suggests a section of the Manx Electric Railway between Laxey and Ramsey could be considered for closure or reduction. The email explains that the department would, quote, have a statutory obligation to maintain fences and drains if we abandon any section of line. Meanwhile, Douglas's Horse Tramway comes up with figures proving that the attraction has been less attractive to cruise passengers visiting the island due to the lack of a tram stop at the sea terminal. Since the promenade refurbishment project, the tram line hasn't been reinstated along the entire length of the promenade, instead running from Derby Castle to Broadway only. In 2018, before the prom works got underway, some 78,000 passengers were recorded against a backdrop of what's described as a fledgling cruise ship itinerary. The unnamed member of the DOI writes, with the current terminus location, it's not an attractive event for cruise passengers, consisting of a bus ride, tram trip and another short bus ride. Additionally, the hotels on Loch Prom are no longer served by the horse tram route, and we have some anecdotal evidence that we lose significant numbers of passengers due to this. They suggest if the tramway is reinstated, a jump in passenger numbers to 113,000 a year, with an extra 20,000 cruise passengers available, is not as much of a leap of faith. The email also reveals for the first time that an estimated 59 cruise ships are expected to visit the island next year, bringing around 31,000 passengers.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio Sport.
Pastor My sports editor Rob Pritchard.
Pastor My, good evening. Starting with football, this week sees the return of an Isle of Man and UK-wide football campaign aimed at making the sport safe and inclusive for the LGBTQ+ community. Now in its 10th year, the Rainbow Laces campaign will take place on Ireland from this Saturday until Sunday the 10th of December. It will see members of Manx clubs invited to wear the multicoloured laces on their footwear to raise awareness of the campaign and show solidarity. Launched by UK charity Stonewall in 2013, it aims to support LGBTQ+ inclusion in sport, fitness and physical activity, with over 1 million having helped the cause in the last decade. Elsewhere in football, one of the Isle of Man's walking football players has been called up to represent England. Stephen Faulkner, who plies his trade with Governors Athletic, has been selected to be part of the England over-60s walking football setup. In hockey, 5 of the Isle of Man's national junior squads are back in action in the England Hockey Championships this coming Sunday. For the sides into the next round of the Knockout Championships, the under-16 boys travel to face Preston boys in the EH Boys Under-16 Tier 2 competition at 9am at Preston Hockey Club. Meanwhile, the Isle of Man under-16 girls face Preston girls in the EH Girls Tier 2 knockout tournament straight after at 10:30 at the same venue. Elsewhere, the Manx under-18 girls head to Rossall School to face Garstang in the EH Girls under-18 Tier 2 plate. In the EH under-14 boys Tier 2 plate, the Isle of Man face Alderley Edge, and in the EH under-14 girls Tier 2 plate, it sees the Island come up against Timperley. And finally, in motorsport, dates for next year's Circuit of Man event have been confirmed this week. Organisers have announced the 2-day rally and enduro competition will next take place on the 21st and 22nd of September 2024. This year's occasion, hosted by Ramsey Motorcycle Club, formed rounds 7 and 8 of the ACU British Bike Rally Championship, during which Harry Hillier-Rees claimed the championship crown. 3-wheel races were also involved, as it also incorporated rounds of the British Sidecar Enduro Championship.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Inbound at Ronald's Way, the 5:25 Loganair from Manchester's late, won't be in till 6:10. Then it's the 7:30 EasyJet from Gatwick, 10-8 Loganair from London City, 5-8 returning patient transfer Loganair from Liverpool, all showing on time at the moment. Although the Loganair 6 o'clock outbound to Liverpool is delayed until 6:25, hoping they'll make that time up as it goes along. Last departure tonight, 8 o'clock, EasyJet back to London Gatwick. On the roads, temporary lights on Shore Road in Port Erin. They should be going fairly shortly, if not already. They're doing some draw pit work there. In Colby, still those temporary lights on the main road with Ballakill Ferrick Road for water main work. In Crosby, also temporary lights on the main road near Ballavitchell Road for excavation work. Look out also in Glenmay, the Aracy Road's closed from Glenmay to the Shoulder Road for resurfacing. Temporary lights on Main Road Laxey near Church Hill for gas main work. In Sulby, the Clanner Road's closed for resurfacing. Temporary lights in Douglas on Dukes Road for sewer lining work. Hillside Avenue is closed through to Circular Road for adjacent office window replacement. A section of Switzerland Road's closed for construction work until this time next year. And the Christmas lights are being switched on in Douglas tonight. Restrictions around Victoria Street and Strand Street this evening.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
Quayside. Plans for an energy hub in the north of the Isle of Man could generate up to 25% of the island's required electricity, according to the company behind the proposals. Here's Sean Cowper.
IPV FlexGen and landowners Andreas Airfield are assessing options to develop a site with a range of renewable energy technologies. It's proposed the facility would include anaerobic digestion, solar panels, onshore wind technology and battery storage. IPV FlexGen says it's carried out a series of evaluations and believes Andreas Airfield is an ideal site for energy and commercial development. The company says anaerobic digestion, where organic waste is broken down to create biogas, and solar photovoltaics will be the cornerstone of the project, with claims these will provide greater energy security and economic growth. Those behind the proposals now want to hear from the local community and are holding a public meeting on the topic at Andreas Community Hall on Wednesday next week, getting underway at 7:30pm.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
More women than men are currently diagnosed with lung cancer, so says the Roy Castle Lung Cancer Foundation. November marks Lung Cancer Awareness Month, and fundraiser Trudy Hudson's urging you to show your support for the charity by turning blue.
We're asking people if they would illuminate their house, a window, or stick a plant in the window with some blue lights, or put a blue light outside, and businesses to do the same. We've had a few people who who've asked us for T-shirts so that they can take photographs of surviving people. So anything that you can do to highlight lung cancer would be greatly appreciated. In blue, anything blue that you can think of, a blue iced cake on your social media, anything at all that you can think of to help us, we'd be very, very grateful. So we've had a magnificent response. So Tower of Refuge and Ramsey Swing Bridge, the wedding cake, which looked fabulous. Manx Petroleum lit up the gas tanks in blue. Ramsey Town Commissioners lit up the courthouse. Anyone else that would like to join in, please do spread the word. Lung cancer is the biggest cancer killer here in the island, so we really do want to try and get messages out to as many people as possible. The amount of people diagnosed who have been never smokers is increasing. For the first time this year, more women are being diagnosed than men, and historically it has been men. It's not just older people that are developing lung cancer, although we do acknowledge that historically it's likely to be because of a smoking history that elder people may be diagnosed, but more and more we're seeing younger people diagnosed.
That's it for Update Tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Siobhan Fletcher, producer Tessa Hawley. After the news at 6, Bobby Bob, John Billy's here with Shacklet, Chris Pearson with the greatest hits at 6:30, a little light music with Maurice Powell at 9, and Rianne with the Late Show after 10, and I'll be back tomorrow at 5:30.
WINT